September's sentimental favourites, Melbourne. Let's take a look at the highlights.
West Coast had been mugged by Melbourne just a month earlier, but this time the Eagles were ready and waiting for the Demons to touch down at Optus Stadium. And right from the start, Adam Simpson's men established the tone of the match. The D's couldn't respond. A 10-goal avalanche setting up the win.
Look at Ryan!
A little fumble, pretty costly. Oh, they're out everywhere.
Yes.
Lacroix's going to get it. Lacroix's going to play on. They're going to waltz into goal. And Cripps kicks the second goal of the game. Just a semi-starter on that approach. Makes good connection. Oh, he drifts it home. 3 goals to Kennedy, 6 unanswered.
A shell-shocked Melbourne contributed just 6 points before the long change. A score never before seen in a preliminary final, and one that had statisticians diving for the record books. Conversely, the Eagles had the Sherrin bouncing their way, and everything the home team tried came up blue and gold.
They make you pay every single time.
Josh Kennedy led the charge with 4 goals, one of 9 Eagles who contributed majors.
Big defensive work needing to be done here. Ryan, off the ground, darling. Eagles got another one.
All-Australian ruckman Max Gawn was comprehensively beaten, while Jack Viney couldn't shake the tag of Mark Hutchings. The demolition of the Demons complete with an 11-goal victory, a thumping that put West Coast soaring into the 2018 decider.
So Collingwood had made a statement the previous night demolishing Richmond. Then West Coast came out on the Saturday and did the same to Melbourne. Simo, given the stakes and the calibre of the opposition, where did this rate as a pure performance across the season? Was it your best?
Look, for the stake of the game, yeah. I think I spoke earlier about Richmond. When we beat Richmond earlier in the year, you could sort of tell Richmond had still the confidence that they were on the right track. And I thought when Melbourne beat us round 22, our players weren't, I wouldn't say concerned, but they were okay, and we handled that review pretty well. And, we had got Josh Kennedy back for this game, I think was probably the main change. And, to play like they did, it was exceptional. I do still think, though, Melbourne, first final series for a long period of time, and sometimes you do go through a bit of adversity, and I think that's something they'll reflect on in the future. We definitely have had our fair share over the years, so... that it did all come together that game, and the first half in particular was electric, and some of the planning that the coaches put in place were quite effective, and we really jumped them at the start.
As coaches, one of the great mysteries is when you look back and try to assess what the guys are like before a game, and could we pick that they were really on, or were they a bit flat today? Do you guys have a general handle on what the players are like pre-game and whether they're really locked on?
Not really.
No. Try and guess it.
We try. Sometimes, I don't spend too long with the players. It's probably 5 or 6 minutes. I talk to the players, and the coaches do their thing, and a lot of it's about the individual and their prep. And a lot of our players meditate and do a bit of mindfulness. Probably 60% of our players will. 5 minutes before I talk, they'll sit in a dark room as a collective and go through a bit of a process there. So. It's a very individual prep, and then I bring everyone together, and sometimes I think I nail the address and they play terribly, and sometimes I'll completely muck it up and they'll walk out laughing and they'll play really well. Yeah. So I'm trying to work out what we did in the prelim. I think there was a story about my son that made no sense.
But it just loosened the group up?
Got to laugh, yeah, we've got to laugh. And
that's always a good sign.
I think we did speak about the fact that if you're a first year player that in a prelim you're thinking, geez, I could really hit the big stage today, I could really kick 5 goals and arrive, and that's the first year player, so that's Venables. And then you got the Josh Kennedy who's thinking, geez, I have to play well today for us to win, I need to hold my status as an A-grade player, and this is the big stage. So you got these variables of thought, so we just addressed that. I spoke about, we've all got these thoughts, so just get rid of those thoughts and just play your role. That was pretty much along the lines of what we spoke about. So when they went out, they were pretty calm, but that doesn't work all the time. So I'm not taking any credit for the start. They just started really well.
obviously not only a win that gets you in a grand final, but a confidence-boosting win, a real win that can generate some momentum and self-belief to carry you forward in a grand final week, Jamie.
Yeah, I think the confidence they get from the work they put in. There's some good learning from the Melbourne game 3 or 4 weeks prior, and I think our rucks did plenty of work on Gorn and what happened the previous game, and our backline also worked hard on some plans that didn't quite work previously. And again, we had 2 weeks to think about that game, so we've got a funnel, I suppose, and we didn't want to give them too much information, but there's some real clear focuses, and they managed to execute it and got themselves into a grand final. And we're again playing a team that we played a couple of weeks earlier, so we had some good learnings, and there was some excitement initially that we're in a grand final, but then they were quick to get onto to their job of prepping for Collingwood and taking away some learnings from the previous couple of weeks and getting ready to execute it on the big stage. So,
Simo, the moment the siren sounds on preliminary final day and you've won, tick that box, you're another step closer. Yep. What does your mind immediately go to, knowing you're about to go downstairs to talk to this group and they've got what's going to turn out potentially to be the biggest week of their lives ahead of them?
Having gone through it in 15, I suppose I flipped into a reflection pretty quickly, and the fact that the game was so comprehensive, I think we had a fair bit of time to prepare ourselves for what was going to be a pretty big week coming up. So, to be honest, I think all of us took it in our stride a little bit. The fact that we still had another win to get and another box to tick, and how we prepare for a grand final. When you're from the West, it's a little bit different because you got to book the tickets and flights and everything 2 weeks beforehand. So the build-up into the prelim, we've got to dedicate an hour to get your grand final. If we win this week, you've got to have your suit ready. Your family and friends want tickets. So how many tickets do you want? Flights, here's the flights. 11 of our players have got kids. So baby seats, hire cars, grand final parade, who wants tickets in the rooms. That's all before the prelim. So
could you imagine Dennis Pagan dealing with that?
Well,
the idea of don't get ahead of yourselves. You shouldn't be thinking about the grand final before the prelim.
You're right. I mean, it's part of the learnings from 15. We probably weren't as organised as a club on if we make the grand final. You need to get all this stuff organised. So this time around, they can just. I think everyone had a designated organiser, so every player had to have someone. So when the siren went, all those things were already done. So that was the first tick, I suppose, from an organisational point of view, that we probably ticked that box, and then it was just about reviewing the game as quick as we could and get onto the pies.
So Collingwood would be West Coast grand final opponent after I mentioned that incredible demolition of reigning premiers Richmond in the preliminary final, made for another blockbuster showdown between two of the country's biggest clubs. Collingwood president Eddie Maguire got on the front foot. He looked to rally